Hi guys, this is Eric with the Film Photography channel. Today, let's take a look at the Olympus 35DC. So the Olympus 35DC is a compact camera from the 1970s that's joins company with a lot of other great little cameras of the day. An example, probably one of the most popular ones is its big brother, the Olympus 35RD, which has a lot more manual controls than this one. There's the Minolta Himatic 7S2. There's a series of Olympus pens. There's the Canonet QL17 G3. So it's in a lot of good company. This basic form factor, the fixed lens 35 millimeter camera, still lives today in mostly in the cameras that Fuji makes, their X100 series. It kept the same basic form factor, nice, robust fixed lens compact camera. Okay, I mentioned the Olympus 35RD, which again is the big brother of this camera. The difference between that camera and this, because they have the same body, they have the same lens. The difference being that this one is a fully automatic camera. It doesn't give you a whole lot of options to control anything. But the more you kind of delve into this camera, you'll find out that that's not exactly 100% true. There are a lot of pretty neat ways to use this camera that will give you a surprising amount of control. Okay, so let's just go over the body real quickly. This lens is a superb lens. It's a 40 millimeter f1.7. It's a 6-element lens. I think 6 elements in 4 groups. It's multi-coated for color film, and that's noteworthy because a lot of lenses, if you go back far enough, were never designed for color film. They were only designed for black and white. Super sharp lens. With the, again, fully automated metering system, which I'll show you a little bit about. Okay, so the heart of the metering system is, it's all kind of, let me zoom in, it's all kind of right in here. Okay, everything kind of lives on the lens. This is the photo CDS cell. That's what reads the light right there. Okay. And this is where you set your ASA, what we call ISO now. And then here's just the markings, the 1.7 millimeter Zuiko, since it's an Olympus lens. To set the ISO, I'll show you because I initially had a little problem with this before I figured it out. The first thing you want to do is you want to put your focusing knob as far, or your focus as far out as possible, because there's like a small, really thin inner knob right here that you use to set your ISO, and it's a little hard to get to. It's knurled only on 2 spots, so you kind of got to find those 2 spots. But as you can see, the ISO changes there, so that's how you do that. The lens has a distance scale in meters and feet, but it does not have depth of field markings on there, and that's kind of due to the fully automatic nature. Up top here, you'll see the shutter release, which, by the way, has a built-in safety. It just doesn't let you release the shutter if it's too dark. The top also has the film counter here and a guide number scale here. More on that in just a minute. Okay, I'm just going to finish going over the body. Simple flash system, no TTL, just a single spot. Your flippy outy rewind knob, pretty standard stuff, and nice smooth film advance. The overall build quality is pretty nice. It feels good in the hand. It feels nice and solid. The bottom plate here, you have your battery cells going there. You do have a metal tripod socket, and your rewind button, your rewind film rewind release button, and this is the release for the back plate. On the back, this little button here serves two purposes. It's a battery check, but also if you hit this little button on the back, it'll allow the shutter to go off where it normally would not. Okay, due to it being under or overexposed. The front here is, you see the nice engraved nomenclature, Olympus 35DC. You'll see a self-timer switch there, typical 10-second delay, and the camera will go off all by its lonesome. The front here, you've got a rangefinder, and this is a particularly good rangefinder for a little compact camera. It has a nice size center patch that is really easy to focus with. I mean, it just, the subject seems to just pop into focus. It's about as good as they get in terms of rangefinder patches. The viewfinder is decent. You can see, the viewing area there. It's not a huge window, but as you look through there, it actually is a nice size viewfinder. The focus is buttery smooth, really light. It's not really well dampened. It's just a nice light focusing movement. But as you look through there, what you'll see in the bottom is your shutter speeds ranging from 1/15th to 1/500th, and you'll also see below that, and this is on the bottom of the frame, okay? What you see below that is your f-stops ranging from the f1.7 maximum aperture of this camera to f16, and you have a yellow frame with a lot of area open around it, so it's kind of a nice wide open viewfinder with the nice yellow focusing patch in the center. You also have parallax correction lines in there to, for when you're focusing up close. And speaking of which, this camera can focus as close as 1 meter, which is pretty standard, about 3 feet away. Pretty standard stuff for this type of camera. The backlight compensation button here, what that does is it increases your exposure value by 1.5 for in case you're photographing a subject that is backlit. That's the name. Better thing to do is probably get the sun behind you, but if you don't have that option, you can always hit the backlight compensation button, and that'll help out. And that's one of the things I was saying, that it's not 100% that you can't control how this camera takes pictures. So there are a little bit of creative controls there. The backlight compensation is one of them. Another one is the ASA knob here around the lens. If you want to force the camera to overexpose, you're shooting 400 film, you expose it for 200. For that particular frame. If you're trying to like overexpose a frame beyond what the backlight compensation button will do, then that's one method you have actually the only method you have of doing that. Don't forget that all you're doing is telling the camera what type of film. If you're shooting 400 and you're fooling the camera into thinking you're shooting 200, then it's going to offer the film more light. You can do that for a couple of frames that you need to compensate for, and after that you go back to whatever the original setting was. Okay, this camera, believe it or not, has an actually pretty sophisticated flash system. This guide number window on the top plate here has a little knob, a little dial rather, that allows you to set the guide number for your flash. Now, if you don't know what a guide number is, I'll put up a description here. Okay, so the guide number for a given flash, like I've got this little flash point, little generic cheapo flash, which is actually a nice flash. But yeah, the guide number on this particular flash is 80. Okay, so I simply dial in the guide number on the camera, which it doesn't have 80, but the closest you can get is 90. And by the way, the guide numbers range in feet. 32 feet to 130 feet is the range for the guide numbers. Anyway, so it's kind of amazing the way this camera works, because it seems like such a simple camera that, you know, really doesn't do much other than point and shoot. But as soon as you attach this flash, even if the flash is not powered on, as soon as there's contact made with the with that little center connection there on the flash shoe, this camera will right away lock in to a given shutter speed based on the guide number that you dialed in here, which should match closely, as closely as possible, the flash. You shouldn't use in between. You know, you shouldn't go in between the guide numbers. Just lock in on one. This is an 80. Closest one is 90, so just lock into 90. Okay, so as soon as I pop the flash on here, whether the flash is powered up or not, it'll change the shutter speed to, you know, a faster shutter speed. I'm in a dimly lit room, you know, right now. So if I were to not have the flash on, just to kind of run through this with you, I'm beyond the range. You know, I can press the shutter and it won't release. So as soon as I pop the flash on there, okay, whether it's on or not, I'm automatically at a faster shutter speed, and this camera will sync the flash all the way up to 1/500th of a second, which is really nice for fill flash. Okay, so here's the kind of brilliant part of how this camera uses a flash. All right, for example, let's focus in close. I'm focusing in on my laptop, which is basically 3 feet away. All right, and when I do that, I get an f-stop of I get an f-stop of f16 at 1/500th of a second. You know, because the laptop's really close. Okay, so if I go further out, just across the room here, it's probably about 10 or 12 feet, it opens up to f8 at looks like a 1/250th of a second. It's right between 125 and 500. So yeah, that's pretty brilliant, I think, for a little point and shoot, little compact. It detects your focus distance, and it adjusts your flash, not your flash output, but it adjusts your f-stop and your shutter speed based on how far away the subject is that you're trying to photograph. You can get one of these anywhere from, you know, a working one, anywhere from 50-ish to $100, $120, $130, depending on how minty you want it to be. I think I paid $60 for this one. It's pretty in good shape. Some scratches here, not a big deal. Some superficial scratches on the bottom plate, but it's free from light leaks and so forth. Fit and finish on it is great. The lens is top notch. I mean, it's a nice lens. I mean, I was really impressed with some of the photos that I got out of this camera. I mean, it's every bit as good as I don't know, any full frame DSLR out there. Obviously, fixed lens, you know, other differences, but in terms of, you know, for example, capturing a photo in daylight, you're going to get just phenomenal, beautiful results from this camera. This one's a little gem. I highly recommend it. You know, honestly, I don't know if I would spend the money to get an RD. I looked at the RD, you know, the big brother to this one, and I just didn't really see, especially since you're getting the same lens, and it's not like the RD has a bunch of fancy features. You get more manual control, but to me, anyway, it wasn't enough to pay double what I would pay for this one. Okay, so that is my review of the Olympus 35DC. Highly recommend it. Look at the RD, decide for yourself. Just know that they've got the same 6-element lens, the Zuiko 1.7 6-element lens. It's a beautiful lens. This takes beautiful photos, super easy to use, and a surprisingly well thought out flash system. That's basically it. So thanks for tuning in, guys. go out and get you an Olympus 35DC.